Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us here in the room and live online. My name is Oliver Kahn. I work for the World Economic Forum. Now, we're innovating this special media briefing with the Deputy President, Cyril Ramaphosa. Unfortunately, the Deputy President is on his way, but we have this room for a finite period, so we thought we'd kind of reconfigure the format somewhat and start with a question and answer session. I have three very high-ranking, excellent ministers here to take some questions and give some perspectives on the South African experience here at the annual meeting 2018. We hope the Deputy President will be along very, very shortly, along with his colleagues. So, to my immediate left, Minister of Trade and Industry, Rob Davies. Moving along and missing out the space in the middle, of course, Minister in the Presidency, responsible for planning, monitoring and evaluation, Jeff Rodeby. And then we have Minister for Economic Development, Mr. Ibrahim Patel. So let's just have a Q&A session for a bit, and we'll see what happens in a few minutes. How about a show of hands? Why don't we get a bit of an interest as he wants to ask any questions? Can I see some hands? Okay, Mr. Gentleman in the front row. We'll take three at a time. So we'll pass the microphone along. So take those three. Can you remind us? I know who you are, but remind us where you're from, sir, and your name for those of us that don't.
Okay, Alec Hogg, biznews.com. Really just an overall, well, two things, one general, one specific. From a general perspective, just the difference between this year and last year. You were all three here last year. And specific, from a national government perspective, the crisis with water in the Cape.
Okay, so it's water in the Cape in 1 year to the next. Passing on to the lady at the front row.
Okay, thank you. I'm a reporter with China's Taixing Media, and my question is regarding a Chinese company. South Africa Parliament is investigating the tendering process of Transnet with CRRC, a Chinese railway corporation, about kickback and localization. I'm wondering what is the latest progress, and is it influence Chinese investment in South Africa in any way? Thank you.
Ma'am, and gentlemen there in the second row, we'll do three at a time. So get your questions ready. Everybody else, you're next.
Chris Bishop, CNBC Africa. Simple question I have for you is, what do you think is going to be the greatest challenge? You've said that you're going for policy certainty. You said you're going to deal with corruption. What else do you think you need to sort out to make sure that foreign investors keep coming back to South Africa?
A good question to ask in a week that Goldman Sachs mentioned South Africa as the emerging market story of 2018. Where do you want to start? Should we start with the difference a year makes? Who likes to take that question?
Why don't you start and we move this way?
Well, I'm sure we'll all say something about that. I think that what we are detecting this year is a much more optimistic view about South Africa than we had last year. And I think that the vision that has been enunciated by Deputy President of the Republic and the President of the ANC, and the fact that we had a stable transition, and that there is now a strong commitment. And by the way, those of you that don't know, the terms of reference of the Commission into state capture and corruption have now been published, and that process will begin. I think that all of that indicates that we are beginning to get on top of some of our biggest challenges, and that this is, I believe, and I have noticed with all the investors and significant business people that I've interacted with in the course of the last few days, they're all very welcoming of all of this. And I think that that is creating a platform on which we can build and strengthen our investment relations. So let me answer just the other question about, apart from dealing with the corruption, apart from a greater policy certainty, what else? I think that over the years we've been trying, and against the headwinds of some of the issues that have not been adequately dealt with that I just mentioned, we've been trying to do a few things. One is to identify concretely investment opportunities in our country, and then also to try to facilitate the investment experience with the establishment of a one-stop shop called Invest South Africa. In fact, this year we brought the head of Invest South Africa here as well. And the whole intention is that many investors, foreign investors as well as domestic investors, they will respond to an identification of concrete opportunities. They will want to know what support programs we put in place. They will want to know what the conditions and terms are in return for those. And I think where we've done this, and we've done it, I think, reasonably well in some parts of our economy already, the motor industry sector, for example, where the Automotive Production Development Program has created a considerable amount of certainty, which has supported a large number of investments, that has had a positive response. And the one-stop shop is physically, its offices. You will see representatives of a number of government departments that will then take regulatory decisions, ranging from Home Affairs about immigration permits, the Department of Labour, the Environmental Affairs about environmental impact. All of those departments are represented, and even when they're not, they're contactable online. And the whole intention is to allow an investor to come to a single one-stop shop, and then to have an easy passageway. You know, we don't just say, well, go to this office, go to that office, go to the other office, but actually there's a coordinated and single channel through. It's called investment facilitation. We've taken a concrete decision to do that, and I think it's been working, but I think that now we've got a better climate for some of that work to move further ahead. And then lastly, let me just say on the question about the parliamentary inquiry, it is the portfolio committee that is dealing with the trade and industry that's operating that, and of course they have their own autonomy. It's not a government process; it's a parliamentary process. But what they're looking into, it's not any particular country or any particular contract or tender, but what they're looking into is that we have a number of policies around localization. And those policies, I think, in the past even we can point to some successes, that we have had companies that have responded, and when there are contracts and tenders, they have come and invested in our country and they've established manufacturing capacity. But we have seen that where there are contracts and tenders that have not been the kind of contracts and tenders which have not passed muster in terms of the criteria of good governance and lack of corruption. Not only have these tenders meant that somebody's pocketed money they shouldn't have done, or that funds have gone astray and that kind of thing. Bad enough as that is, it's also meant very often that tenders have been awarded not to local manufacturing, but they've been awarded to people who've preferred imports. We've had a number of cases of that. That's what that inquiry is doing. And I think my own view of it has been for a long, long, long time. They must do the work. They must do whatever they find. The chips must fall wherever they should be. We don't have direct line responsibility over the state-owned companies concerned, but I think that we are very supportive of greater consequence management for people that have not observed the rules, including because they undermine one of the very important policy tools for industrialization in our country.
Yeah, I would like to agree with my cabinet colleague that the major difference between this year and previous years, there's more confidence and hope and more coherence and cohesion within Team SA. I think that is driven largely about the political developments that have happened since December 2017, and also even the questions that are being posed today from investors and business people here in Davos are indicating that there's more confidence in the ability of our government to ensure that we drive our national development plan, as well as what our Deputy President has highlighted since he arrived here, the issue of a social compact between government, business, and other social partners to drive this program going forward. What is the main challenge? I think the statement of our governing party, the ANC, that was delivered by the ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa indicates the line of march, what we're going to be seeing in the next 12 months. The issue of jobs is on top of the agenda, not only of the governing party, but also is a priority of the South African government. Issue of small and medium enterprises and infrastructure, especially its maintenance, because we spend a lot of money as a South African government in the past few years, but on the maintenance, there are major challenges, which explains why we're having some of the challenges of water in the Western Cape. But as a central government, we are totally committed to working together with the Western Cape government and the Metro of Cape Town to ensure that we do everything within our power to deal with the water crisis there. Lastly, I would like to say as well that the confidence boosting measures that were started last year, I think they're beginning to bear fruit, as is highlighted by the strong stance that Minister Davis has also highlighted of dealing decisively with matters of corruption, as well as we have seen the action that has been taken by the National Prosecuting Authority, even preserving the assets of those companies that are suspected of malfeasance. But what is more important, therefore, is to consolidate all these measures going forward.
Well, I think my two colleagues have really said it all. Really just to underline, emphasize, we've seen a very positive mood among South African business. And investors in Davos have paid attention to that. They see a South African delegation that's come here, that is buoyant, that's confident about growth prospects for this year. And I'd like to say that in our engagement with investors here, it's clear to us that there's an appetite, there's a growing appetite for them to either expand their operations in South Africa. We met with some investors this morning, and they were very clear to us. They were waiting to see whether the outcomes of our political processes were consistent with their sense of sustainability. And some of them have said, look, we're ready now to expand our operations in South Africa. We see it as a great base for our markets in the rest of the African continent. We're indicating we've got $25 billion US dollars ready and available for infrastructure spending. And that provides investors some degree of certainty that we're putting in place the physical and other platforms that they need to be able to expand their businesses, but also that investment itself will stimulate opportunities and partnerships. So I think all of our discussions this year, Alec, and I'm sure that in your engagement with people here, you'd have seen the same. There's a sense that we can do things, but that window is available and we have to utilize that window. And since you've come for Hamlet and the Prince has just come in, this is a good moment for me to end and really hand back to you.
Thank you very much. A very warm welcome to the Deputy President, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa. Very glad for you to join us. So I believe with time pressing as it is, and unfortunately that is a reality here, I'd love a few more questions. Perhaps the Deputy President, if he's caught his breath, would like to make some remarks, some brief remarks. And I should also say, whilst you're catching your breath, very warm welcome to Minister of Finance, Mr. Malusi Gigaba, who will take a seat right at the end there. Please,
want me to say something?
If you wish to say anything, otherwise we can take questions.
Well, I think we should take questions, and all I'd like to say is that I think we've had a very, very successful, if you like, pilgrimage as a South African delegation, what we call Team South Africa, to Davos. I think our journey here has paid enormous dividends. I think we're going back home filled with a great deal of confidence, that the international investing community has in us. They have demonstrated that South Africa is still an important destination for investment. All the meetings that we have heard, we've had nothing negative that has been said about our country, and all what we've heard has been encouragement. You're on the right course, keep going, and we applaud you for this new era that has been unleashed in South Africa, and they're wishing us everything of the best, that we keep to course and we follow through with the changes, the reforms, and the determination that they have seen us communicating the interventions that we are going to make. So we go back home also with almost a bag full of investment commitments. Many of the business leaders that I have met here have said we are buoyed by this new mood in the country, and we want to assure you, Deputy President, or President of the ANC, that we've got this project and that project and that project on the line. This is precisely what we've been hoping to hear in terms of coming to our pilgrimage here to Davos, that we want to hear the investing world coming to us and telling us that your message is clear, it is positive, it is forward-looking, and it is the type of message that we can have confidence in. You are going to correct some of the missteps that you have had in the past, and we believe you, and we think we are able to reconnect with you and invest in your economy again. So I go back home very, very satisfied Deputy President of the Republic.
Thank you, sir. Now, by my reckoning, we probably have to give this room back in 5 minutes, so let's try to get as many questions as we can. I've seen 3 people in the front row with their hands up. 4. Sir, if you could just give us your question and pass it along, the microphone along.
Thank you. Yanda Hinton, Bloomberg News. So how likely is it that plans to build new nuclear power plants in South Africa will now be taken off the table?
Okay, nuclear plants off the table. Lady in with the white hats there. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Minister Radebe. Just some feedback on the implementation of the National Development Plan, please.
National Development Plan, pass it along, please.
Mr. Deputy President, I just want to get your reaction to the terms of reference for the state inquiry being out today.
And there's a gentleman in the back, second row there.
Just some more details about your plans for growth, and also, again, any comments you've got with regards to the state capture inquiry.
Okay. Deputy President, there was the nuclear plant, the terms of reference for state capture, and plans for growth.
Well, the nuclear plants, really, I mean, we've got to look at where our economy is. We've got excess power right now, and we have no money to go for a major nuclear plant building. And all of this really needs to be looked at in context, in the current context that we are in. And if, for instance, you've got excess power and you don't have the money, and we have already said that this nuclear process will be looked at within the broad context of affordability and what we currently have. And this is how it needs to be looked at. And if in our discussions, as we proceed with discussions, we find that it doesn't in the end really make sense because we don't have money, that is the type of discussion that we will have. With regard to the terms of reference, I have not seen the terms of reference, I must say. I've heard that they've just come out, and I need time to look at them and to study them and to see the extent to which they are going to enable the Commission of Inquiry to do its work effectively. I know, for instance, that the Deputy Chief Justice has been saying that he needs those terms of reference to be out so that he can start with the work. But I think the positive thing about all this state capture process is that, one, we are now going to go to the depths of what corruption has been taking place in our state-owned enterprises. I think that is a huge plus. 2, we've got an independent judge who's going to look at all this. And 3, this process will go along in tandem with the process that needs to be followed through by the criminal justice system of identifying those who have committed wrong and making sure that they are brought to book. So the two should not be seen as excluding the other one. The two processes will go ahead because where wrong has been committed, it must be followed through, and those who are found to be responsible for that must be dealt with. The growth issue, my colleagues can answer that. One of the things that has been impeding growth is, 1, corruption, 2, what we've been doing with our state-owned enterprises in terms of their dysfunctionality, their weak balance sheets. Once we address that, we're going to find that investors will find our country attractive for investment. So investors will then come We're open for investment. We're dealing with the regulatory framework in our country, and we're going to deal with all those issues that potential investors have raised. For instance, in the mining industry, the mining charter is now going to be thoroughly discussed with the key role players so that we find a solution that will unlock our mining industry so that South Africa can benefit from this commodity boom. We do not want to miss out on this commodity boom that is unfolding. And if the mining charter is holding us back, then we must deal with it and find commonality of purpose and views with potential investors. The other ones, I think, another one was directed to you, Minister.
Yeah, on the implementation of the National Development Plan, as you know, since 2014, we started the first 5-year program of implementing the National Development Plan with 14 outcomes starting from education, health, the economy, social cohesion, and nation building. So every quarter, we do make a presentation to government to see how far we've gone in implementing the NDP, as well as to identify obstacles that still stand in the way of doing that. We've just released a midterm review of how far we've gone since 2014, and going forward, we need to accelerate the implementation of this program, but we need to record as well that the success of the implementation of the NDP does not lie on government alone. It requires collaboration and partnership with the private sector, other organs of civil society, as well as labor. And the social compact that the Deputy President has been talking about has to be accelerated so that we jointly ensure the success of the NDP. But we are very optimistic that we are on track in terms of dealing with all the challenges, but we need to focus more, as it has been indicated in the General 8 statement that the President of the ANC, Deputy President Ramaphosa, indicated about 2 weeks ago, of focusing on jobs, jobs, and jobs.
Well, thank you very much. My colleagues are telling me, unfortunately, we do have to make this room available for the next session. So I hope that's given you a good flavour, a good picture of the activities of Team South Africa at this meeting, the priorities for year ahead. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us here on the panel as well. This session is now over.